think we're on. Just wait for this thing to load. Yeah, alrighty, let's kick it off. Hello guys, sorry about all this weird stuff happening, a couple of Twitch issues and whatnot, but we are here for round 12 for the Mexican Grand Prix for Contest of Speed, American Tier 1. I'm Bodhod and I'm joined by Kitten, and today the roles will be reversed because I'm in control of the stream. I have the power under my fingertips, which is a bit annoying.
It's Freaky Friday.
Yeah, I mean, we're just making do with what we can, so things will be a bit weird, and apologies if anything's a little bit disjointed, but we'll do our best considering. We're about halfway through quali, or not quite halfway, so it's good that we are in, and I'm looking forward to this race. It should be a decent one.
Yeah, it should be. I think, yeah, for the most part, I think ever since that PS update last week, things are just all disheveled, at least on my end, and I'm trying to sign into YouTube and Twitch. But yeah, interesting race, especially I think some of the drivers are confirming there's going to be rain about 20 minutes in. Already tricky conditions as it is, over 1.5 miles above sea level. It really eats away at the fuel and at the ERS with the two long straightaways. So yeah, always an interesting race around here. I think, as we learned last night, I mean, it comes down to the corner cutting. I think this is probably going to be the second of the 3 straight weeks. Last week in Austria, this week in Mexico, and next week in Canada, where corner cutting is going to really come into play. 3 really strict circuits in a row.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, to get up top first, you have to make your lap count. That means staying between the white lines. Probably just about the easiest place to cut corners. And you did mention the 3 in a row, which are all a bit difficult to manage, but we'll see what these guys can do. Just riding on board with KD for that lap, just getting a feel of the track and the layout. He's gone into P4. Currently we've got SMM Alp leading away by a very small margin actually over Nicholas, and they're about a second clear of Enrique in P3. So I know Alp and both the McLaren's Alp and Speedster are very quick around here, so we should see them towards the front. But Nicholas and Enrique, as always in the Red Bull, looking pretty good to start off with, which is good.
Yeah, Alp last week, if you guys remember, he had a shocking race at Austria. Finished out of the points as Nicholas marched on towards the championship in what was, I think, round 10.5 last week. I think this week is 11.5 out of 22. Although we do have some confirmation, the makeup race for Vietnam, which was completely glitched out a few weeks ago, that will be on November 25th. I think that's our first off week of the season, so we're going to be able to sandwich that in. Obviously, pretty good that we were able to do that. It's right around Thanksgiving, so that might be tough for some people, especially if they're going out of town in America. But it is definitely better than ending the season in Vietnam, I would say. So I would say, because I feel like that race is just too much of a wild card. I think we're scheduled to end at Coda in February, and that'll probably be the best way to do that.
Yeah, I think it'd be a bit weird as a finale. Probably not the dream track you'd rather have a championship fight at. So yeah, glad we found a time to reschedule that though. It always sucks missing races during the season, so it's good to have that back on the board. Speaking of on the board, Alp has put in another banging time. I was on board with Speedster a minute or so ago as teammate, and he'd been validated in the middle sector. Plenty of guys seem to be doing that. We've still got 5 guys who haven't set times yet, well into this qualifying session, so they're now on the back foot. A couple of less runs to get a time in. Arbar's also putting a good time there in the Mercedes in P3, and his teammate Juventus up in P6 as well, so Mercedes are looking pretty decent at the moment.
It's good from Arbar. I feel like once we get into it, I think, yeah, Arbar actually just invalidated this one. But as we get into the actual race itself, it's going to be really interesting to see how strategy plays out. I think there are 2 pretty clear options here, especially if you start outside of the top 10. And if you do start outside of the top 10, that is not game over for you. Because I think that you hit a 1-stop here. And with the topsy-turvy nature of the circuit, Yes, the process does that improve. The topsy-turvy nature with all the penalties going on, it is going to be a free-for-all. I think it definitely favors someone like Lopez, who's currently P6, which is actually pretty good for him so far this year.
Yeah, definitely. We should talk about strategy a bit later as well, because there are many things we can do. We usually see a variety, although in saying that, if we do have some weather to play a role in the race, and that could throw a bit of a spanner in the works for what some of these guys may have prepared.
And that's a massive impact for Anthony. That's...
Who's that Williams there? We'll see if we can see him on the onboard there. It's an interesting place to crash. It's not a high speed, must be on traction.
Yeah, it is similar. I think if you get on that AstroTurf outside of the curbing, if you put a little too much traction on, it is easy to do that. It's kind of similar to what happens coming at turn 3, where you'll see a lot of guys just over traction. It takes a long time to really be able to lay down the traction if you are not using traction control around those 2 corners in particular, and the final corner as well, although it's a little less exaggerated around there.
Yeah, it is important to get the power down. There's a couple of really key spots on the track where you do need to get the power down with the risk of coming under threat from other cars. So yeah, it's a tricky little track in some ways. I say little because of the lap time, but I mean it's a difficult enough track anyway with the S's, and then plenty of kind of braking and traction zones to deal with for drivers. So it's definitely going to be a challenge, particularly with the rain that is forecasted.
Yep, and it looks straightforward enough on paper. It's a really quick lap. 1:13, obviously Alpa's put in right now. It looks pretty simple from the outset, but the balance involved in being able to tightrope your way around the 2nd and 3rd sector in the stadium, and that over 1 kilometer straightaway on the front straight. There's a lot of take or give, and sometimes if you take too much, you're probably not going to have all 4 wheels attached to the car at the end of the race.
No, it'll bite. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because there are a couple of overtaking spots. So it's a half decent racetrack in terms of wheel to wheel, but I mean you need to get your lap together first before you can worry about racing other people. As I just saw KD jump to P7, so he's starting to find a little bit of form, still not quite getting clean races together. Bersey with another good qualifying, we saw him up the field last week as well. He's currently sitting P6, 14-2, so that's very competitive there for the AlphaTauri. His teammate's just outside the 10 for now, so he'll hope to improve. Did you get information on how long it would take for it to rain? Oh, it's Bingo's P3. The other racing point.
I believe it was Perry in the chat. He said that it's going to be about 20 minutes into the race, so that should be a little bit before the halfway point. This is a long race in terms of laps, 36. So I would say that could probably be around lap 15, 16, 17.
That's interesting, because that's
that region.
Like, I'm trying to think what compound. That's probably a tad too long for a medium stint. So would you go soft before it, or just trying to think what the play would be?
I think if you're starting outside the top 10, I think Hards would probably be where to go, given that knowledge. But it's not exact. Meteorology is always evolving, as I've learned from watching local newscasts my entire life. I don't think Codemasters has done anything exactly reinventing the wheel on that. So there is a little bit of play there. I would say it could be 10 minutes in the race, could be 30 minutes in the race. But I think that if it says it's going to rain, it's probably going to rain over the course of the 36 laps here in Mexico.
Yeah, that is one good thing. It keeps us on our toes. Like, it's not exact. Like, I know last game and a couple of most other racing games, when it says it will come at that second. Whereas here there's a bit more kind of grey area, which makes things exciting. A bit unpredictable as well for the drivers, as it probably should be realistically. So that makes things interesting. Might just say a quick hello to everyone in the stream as well. Might be a bit hard to find us here, but thanks to those who are tuning in. A couple of guys in the chat. Joel, we've got Matty Robbo, who is filling in tonight in the Alfa Romeo. going to try to put a stance on this race. It's going to be difficult with the pace of some of these top American blokes, so we'll see what those guys can do. We've got Ricky in as well. J-Sack is also reserved, I think he's just proven.
Yeah, J-Sack actually won our race at Monaco.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yep.
A few weeks ago, the East Creek. Pretty quick. Although I think Monaco's more of a roll of the dice than anything else. But just let it be known that he is quick. I'm kind of looking forward to see how these guys perform. As I do every week, it seems like we did a couple fill-ins from the European side every race, and quite frankly, they've shown well so far, usually finishing towards the lower end of the top 10.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's kind of where you'd hope they'd fit in, like kind of there or thereabouts, keeping pretty decent pace. As Ricky goes P7, speaking of fill-ins, just jumped from 4th to that 3rd set, so it was quite tidy there, so well done for Ricky for getting that hooked up. Currently sitting in the top 10 just behind Perry. Very, very close gap there. Speaking of close gaps, it is fairly close with the exception of the gap from P2 to P3 as Speedster has retired. I'm not sure if that's in the pits or not. My guess would be just a minute left in the session, so if you're not on track now, you're not going to get a lap in. This looks like a couple of other guys might line up.
If I had to take a gander there, I think we're starting a hot lap right now, but
yep.
I think that Speedster's probably I think he just wants to do a medium stamp at the start due to the possibility of rain about halfway through, and I think that might actually be a smart strategy. Didn't want to put himself in a position where he'd be stuck on the softs at the start. Wants to be able to start somewhere outside the top 10 on the mediums, the higher the better. 13, not too bad for him, to be fair.
I'm with you on that one, yeah. I mean, P11 could be the golden position if that rain is 20 minutes in, because those top 10 on softs, like, they're going to last, they're probably going to have about 6 good laps if you want to stretch into 8 or 9, possibly even 10 if you're brave, but they'll be way past their best at that point. As Arbuzz provided his laps, he's stuck in P5 at a maximum.
That's really the biggest problem around here. I think we probably got the 3 strictest corner cutting circuits on the schedule, back to back to back, and
yep.
yeah, I feel bad for anyone trying to put down hot laps. It's especially tough trying to put down a really fast lap, which obviously Alp and Nicholas have done. But you do see the spread through the field a little more than usual.
Nicholas goes cold.
Nicholas, as a matter of fact, does
flat.
put it on.
Yeah, we just saw the end of that
flat.
lap there, and he's done a superb job. No Alps in the pits, so Nick will take pole unless someone like Perry or Bean could take it off him. But that's a great lap there. Looks like Bean's just come through the final corner now. He's 3.5 tenths up on his best, but he needs to find a lot of time to threaten that top 2, and he's going to come 3 tenths short. So good lap there still from Bean, but what a great lap from Nicholas. I mean, yeah, it's hard enough to get the lap in cleanly, let alone to be pushing as you were kind of suggesting there. But they've obviously found that sweet spot, and Nicholas and Alp absolutely killing it up front, putting in some banging times. I think that will give us a quality actually, because Perry is not pushing and everyone else is either finisher in the pits. So it will be Nicholas on pole. So well done.
Well done for the championship leader. He's starting to scoot away a little bit with Fenrique not having the strongest of form the past few weeks. Definitely going to be interesting. I would expect Nicholas to get off the line first. Probably make it to the first corner ahead of Alp, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, so it is Nicholas and Alp 1 and 2, just 300 separating them pretty much. You got Bean in P3, and then a fairly big gap actually to Perry in P4, but then after that it's very close. You got Arbaf, Enrique, Ricky, Lopez, Bertie and KD make up the top 10. They'll all have to start in those softs, and we'll have to wait and see whether that's a burden for the race. JSAC could be pretty happy, as is Matty Robbo in P11 and 12, getting free choice of tyres. Might slop on some mediums or hards depending when that rain is coming. You got Speedster, Juventus, Swarner, and DK, and Clay Funk round out the grid. 18 drivers. And news in the chat on stream: light rain at 20 minutes, overcast to start, so rain possibly likely to arrive slightly earlier. So those soft guys will be hoping it arrives as soon as possible. whereas those guys in P11 and back may be hoping for a little bit longer. So it's going to be fascinating to see when it actually comes, as it is very, very dark, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, that's a little more than smog.
Yeah. Wow. So that's going to make things interesting, being on old tyres in cool conditions.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would save the tires a little bit more, but if it's going to rain, that's going to be a moot point regardless. So everyone anyone who wants to get their predictions in, guys, let us know. I think Matty Rabo posted early on he was hoping for a strong showing for the EU boys, but at the same time he said he's got Nicholas and Fenrique to grab the podium. So
yeah, plenty of quick guys in here. So I mean, it's going to be tough for some of those EU guys to get right up there. But I mean, with weather to play a part, as well as the penalties, keeping it clean could really pay dividends in the end. It always tends to around Mexico. So as long as you can keep it between the white lines and not kind of end up facing backwards at any point, then you could be in for a shout at the podium. Like, genuinely, that's how important it is to not rack up those warnings.
Yeah.
So I mean, you never really know around a track like Mexico.
Yeah, even I found last night I got 2 warnings towards the end of the race, and both of those warnings were actually when I was trying to kind of take my foot off the throttle through the S section, and then I'm just so used to where I'm turning that I would end up cutting the corner because I was going slow.
Yep.
So it's just all take or give or take around Mexico City. It's a bit of a contradictory track, but it usually throws up some pretty interesting racing. I think, especially with rain, that's what we're going to get here today.
Yeah. Speaking of interesting, I'm just looking at these tyre choices now, and not everyone's gone on to mediums. That tells me that the rain is closer than possibly expected. So Matty Rober could be onto something. He's in P12. He's elected for softs, as has Swarner in P15. So they obviously think the rain has to come in the first 10 laps or so. But then, contrary to that, Clay Punk's put on the hards, so he reckons it's a long way off. Then the guys in between are on mediums, so that's kind of a safe bet. But Adventures from Robbo and Swarner, they're going to be the quickest cars on track in terms of tyres. So that's going to be interesting to see if they can jump. Speaking of jump, the start is mightily important. I think it is it the longest run into turn 1 from Mexico?
Yeah, I think it's between this and Hungary. Yeah, I think this is a bit longer.
Oh, this would be longer than Hungary, yeah. So that's going to make things interesting, as unfortunately J-Sack's left out of virtual pole position in P11. So let's hope he gets back in, because I wanted to see where he ended up with those mediums. But yes, long run into turn 1, and a couple of guys to trademark good and bad starts respectively. So it's going to be important to get off the line. In real life, you know, P3, P4 is just about better than P1 and 2 with that slipstream. So we'll see if anyone can't keep an eye on Bean or Perry or Arbar, see if any of them can get a rocket start and get themselves up. Because those front 2 will hit that air wall at the start. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens into turn 1.
Yeah, a lot more nationalities on the board than usual this week. I think I'm going to start along with Ricky Chiarda as J-Sack does get back in.
So we've got 5 red lights. Let's see if they can get away cleanly. Lights are out. We don't have a glitch, which is fantastic. Away we go. And our leaderboard hasn't glitched either, which makes things even better. We've already got a bit of movement up and down the field. We're almost 4 wide at the front. So let's hope they behave themselves a bit.
Yeah, we're going to see these guys fan out all over the place.
Oh, we're 3 wide to turn 2 for P2. Who can hang on? Looks like they've all kept it clean for now, but I mean, someone's got to give eventually. Looks like Alps managed to just hang on, but he's going to lose it around the outside to Bean. And Perry's going to try and sneak through as well. And Lopez, Lopez getting right involved.
In that one.
Yeah, wow. So plenty happening, and Alp's going to make a move back on Perry into P3, but I mean, they've done well to kind of keep their noses out of trouble after all of that chaos. Disaster could have easily happened there.
And everything back through the pack is still too wide from 10th place down. Swarner has been a huge mover into P9 right now, forces Lopez off. Not sure if he's going to be thrilled about that.
Yeah, on those fresh tyres, so Swarner's going to make the most of it now. Just with Arbar on board, because Alp and Perry going side by side into the S's, but they've sorted themselves out. But look at those gaps at the front, they're already over a second between the top 3. So that Alp and Perry battle has cost them a bit, but Alp needs to put in a good couple of laps to get back into the fight. Nicholas will lead them away. So a good start there from the front row for Nicholas. He managed to hold his own. He's got a 1.5 second gap almost to Bean, who managed to go around the outside of Alps. So now we see the long train down the straight.
I'm getting the leaderboard glitch now, which is great. But yeah,
that's not great.
Yeah, I think Alp definitely did lose out there, but Nicholas with the start, he probably would have dreamed of already breaking DRS within that first possible lap.
It's
really good news.
100%. Particularly with that 30A, you're going to get the second sector. You really want to get the gap while you can. These other guys who started on those softs, they're going to struggle a bit to stay with him, so it's important to get that break. Particularly if there's a bit of question regarding strategy and whether to play, you'd rather have that little safe window. So we'll have to see whether they can make the most of it. Fenrique's got some good pace here. He's right in the back of R-bar. It's not really a viable overtaking place. There is DRS this year. I think it's the first year we have had DRS down that tiny little straight out of the S's. But it's probably more to line you up for the main straight. Probably not going to see many guys on
also, I think it is a pretty good overtaking opportunity. Because it is a wide entry into the stadium, and different tires will be going at different paces coming out of the S section.
Yeah.
So I actually do think that is pretty clever to promote a little more overtaking.
Yeah, we'll have to see whether anyone can make the most of it. Speaking of making the most of it, Lopez and Swan are going side by side again, so Lopez is not willing to give it up. Swan has to cut the corner there and probably pick up a warning, and he might pick another one on the exit. Matty Robbo is going to sneak down the inside of Lopez as well, due to being a bit forced off the racing line in terms of Swan just being there. He's going to try and look around the outside. It's difficult to hold it side by side with that contact here because it's so narrow, but they're managing to do so somehow. Martin jump aboard the speedster or the onboard. He's going to have the best view, as we've already got raindrops falling, so the rain's already here. It's just a matter of whether the track gets wet enough. Yeah, so that is a lot earlier than I probably would have expected.
Speedster does box out. Yeah, Speedster boxes out Matty into the S section. Looking around here, Swerve has had the best start. I would like to preface that this is Swerve's best circuit, but I did watch the EU1 race today, and he finished like 13th. So take that with a grain of salt, folks.
Yeah,
not sure, but yeah, rain here. I would expect probably 2 or 3 laps until people even start contemplating getting altitude, because that's Federico in our bar.
Yeah, with the DRS. So DRS still active. It probably will for a couple of laps still. So if you want to make a move with it, you're going to have to do it quickly. He's going to hang on, and he'll have the DRS for this second straight here, because I believe there's only one protection point. So if you get it down the main straight, you'll get it to defend if you can make that move. So it's quite handy. And you can see if Enrique's managed to pull away, he won't come under threat from R-bar again. Look at up the back, J-Sack and Ant. I've been watching those guys switch around on the leaderboard. We might have a little look at that actually. They're having a nice little battle down there, while the top guys kind of spread a tiny bit. Although in saying that, Perry is closing on Alp again, so Perry looks like he's got a bit of pace in these changeable conditions. So we'll have to see what he can do in that Haas. He's currently in P4. One other thing worth noting, I caught last lap, Alp did pick up 3 seconds. So very, very early in the race, you don't want to be doing that anymore.
That's going to be the first of many, and I am really, much to my chagrin, I think I'm going to have to count, I'm going to have to start counting these penalties about halfway through the race. Not a math guy, but I'll do my best. I think it's going to be, I mean, like I said before the race started, it's, the track limits around here are just extremely harsh.
Yeah. I mean, it's so difficult, like, to try and push, but then kind of try and back off a little bit enough to not risk getting penalties. As Swan's going to line up KD, he's going to send it down the inside. It looks like he's going to throw the nose in, but he kind of backs out. It's like a half-hearted move. If you're going to go for that, you need to send it. But now Lopez will be right behind Swarner as well, so these guys getting nice and close together. But I think Swarner, he's going to have another look here. Where's he going to go? He's going to try inside. No, again, it's only a half-hearted move. Probably not willing to quite risk it all yet, with so much of the race to go. 36 laps around here because it is such a short, quick lap. So it is a long one.
Let's speedster around the outside of Lopez.
Wow. Great
this is
move
the
there.
kind of breaking up pace I think you would probably expect in a race like this. As soon as those drops started falling, I think these guys knew get this game on.
Yeah,
Feel bad
great
for
racing.
the medium seasoners.
Yeah, and pit hard as well, that's worth noting. I'm not sure why that's happened.
I mean, it could. I mean, it could be like a couple weeks ago where it just kind of rains and rains, but you don't really get to that interchange point.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's just light rain, then you might be better off just.
Oh, Spawner's off the side. And KD's lost a lot of time there. I was on board with Lopez there, and I'm not sure if they made some contact, but both just happened to lose at the same time. But they're going to be pretty much too wide in 2 rows there. As Matty Robbo's going to try and make a move on Spawner as well. So Spawner losing 4 spots there, which is really disappointing after that rocket start. And Speedster's going to get the best of them all up into P8 on those mediums as well, worth noting. So, as KD gets a bit loose there as well. So these guys really struggling with the conditions at the moment. As up ahead looks like Arbar and Ricky might be having a bit of a scuffle as well. Or you can see the track though, I'm just riding on board here, and it is starting to spray up a tad. So we may see these guys in the next couple of laps, but plenty happening at the start. Lopez pushing Speedster through those little corners, those little right-handers there. And Spawner and Matty Robbo are now having a scuffle again as well. So lots and lots happening here. As we have come to expect from these American guys. You see a comment in the chat, why am I watching this at 3:33 and I need to get up in 5 hours? This is why you're watching it, because it is absolutely superb racing. These guys put on a show every single week, so you wouldn't want to miss any of the action. These guys are finally sorted each other out, but yeah,
you
crazy
are, but
stuff.
I think as all that stuff is going on, I've been watching the gap at the front. And I'll tell you what, Bean he's not letting Nicholas go. Bean is staying in DRS. We still have DRS, even though it is a bit of a greasy track. And Bean is kind of just sticking around, and that's pretty much been his MO all season. He is, I think he had the first few races of the season, he was a little bit off, but his form really came around and hasn't gone away. He's just always been there or thereabouts. In the top 5 pretty much since we passed Abu Dhabi. I think he's been pretty much just always there.
Yeah.
And he's with this full 22 race season, he's really stringing something together that I think sets him up long term, where he's looking like a champion.
100%. I remember last season, he was always kind of there picking up P2, P3 like every week, like going about his business, but just being consistently up there, and that's why he was so close to that championship. As we get DRS disabled now, I was just going to say a few guys have hit for the Inters. It looks like the changeover period's just about happened. So I think Nick and Bean were right to stay out another lap because they're almost completed. But all was Answers lost in front.
Yeah, they're on those inners.
Yep.
Inners and the undeterred, I think Nicholas is going to go in. Yeah, Bean is as well.
Yep.
Let's see what Alpine sees foul, and I think these guys know this is game over.
Yeah.
The drives. This
should all hit. Oh, was Fenrique suddenly stopped in the entry for some reason there? Oh, that's because Nicholas is in. They're going to have to double stack Red Bull. So let's hope Red Bull's ready for him. Or they've actually done okay there. He's only lost us probably an extra 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds there. So Fenrique's gotten a bit lucky there. He's going to come out inside of Arbar. So that is a fine, apparently.
I think Juventus Juventus is going to have to change his wing. Juventus lost it. It is a tricky pit entry around Mexico City in the dry, let alone the wet.
Yeah, definitely. Pinched on the inside there, trying to put power down. So, yeah.
Vicky and Swarner. I think Swarner's going to hold him off for now. But glad to get some Welsh representatives into the American tier every once in a while. I think this is Ricky's first try this year in AM1.
Yeah. Oh, Bean's gone through on Nick as well. So Bean's now in P1. I didn't notice that as I caught my eye flicking on the leaderboard. Usually I'd pick up on that, but that must have happened in the braking zone of turn 4, 5, 6, that area. But Bean's now in P1. And he may have a chance to try and stamp some authority on this race. We'll see what Nick can reply with, because we know Nick has really good pace. And Alp's still kind of there or thereabouts, as is Perry. He's only 1.5 seconds behind. So those two are still sticking with him as well. And then it is a bit of a gap back to Fenrique, but we do know that Fenrique is good in wet and changeable conditions, so I wouldn't be too surprised at all if Fenrique starts to catch these guys. We've seen it multiple times this season, and in past seasons Fenrique's pace is absolutely incredible. I think that's just J-Sack's ghost there getting overtaken a couple of times.
That's one of the things I think when you're Brazilian, you are just automatically good in the wet. Is Nicholas going to pop around the outside here on Bean?
Or tries to squeeze him a tad, still side by side. Oh, tiny bit of contact from Bean as Nicholas Parks trying to get the car turned in, but he's gotten through. So good there again for Nicholas. We might see a fair bit of this switching over. But yeah, Nicholas back through in P1. So this looks like a potential race one battle. But the problem is that's letting other guys in. Look at Alp, he's now 6/10 behind as well. So he's right there. And Perry will be catching as well, still within kind of that 1.1, 1.2 second range. So lining up to be a good battle at the front here. Lots of guys with very similar pace.
Yeah, I think Alp is probably not the guy you want to see in your mirrors at this stage of the race. Just relentless pace coming from Alp. 99% of the time. Obviously last weekend Austria was an outlier. A couple of bad strategy calls, but Perry up here in P4. Speaking just a few minutes ago about Bean, how he's kind of turned around his form. Perry's been consistently top 5, top 6 here in the past couple of weeks after really struggling at the start of the season.
You know, he's been doing well as well, 100%. Yeah, he's been kind of getting those consistent top positions as well. So consistency really paying off for some of these guys as the season goes on. I think this is the halfway point just about, isn't it? So now's the time to really start to string some form together for your second half season charge. And it's good to see a couple of guys really doing that. Speaking of a charge, Speedster's now up in the P6 as well, so we've got to keep an eye on him. We know his pace, even though he's only raced a couple of times in this tier, so he's got a couple of guys in front still, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him catch up as well. And then Mr. Consistent R-Bar as well, so plenty of quick guys here still in the fight. No one's really broken away too much. The gap from Perry to Fenrique is still about that 5 seconds, but I mean, in wet conditions, a couple of good laps and that can close in an instant, so it's still definitely on.
Yeah, I think the undercut did work for the majority of guys who pit early, but for Speedson and Swarner, they have been able to leapfrog quite a few positions. Swarner was really struggling before he went in there. I think he had lost about 5 spots after he gained 6 off the start. And now he's back up to P8, and Speed's obviously in P6. Fenrique might have to start looking behind in his mirrors pretty soon.
Yeah, speaking of gains, if you flip that around, a couple of losses. Those guys who did stay out, who went to kind of at the end of the lap, they would have lost a lot of time when the track was too wet and they were still in dries. Guys like KD, Lopez, even Matty Robbo, they have lost a fair few positions, particularly KD and Lopez. They were sitting around the 6, 7, 8 mark before the rain, so they've lost a little bit. So they're now both outside the points, so they're going to have to put in some good times. They are chasing down Matty Robbo, so points are close, but they wouldn't be too happy about losing that track position. Speaking of, KD picks up 3 seconds in trademark fashion, so it's about keeping it clean from this point for those guys, I think. So interesting to see whether they can kind of climb themselves back up towards the front after both making decent starts. Bit of a setback, we'll see how they recover. Speaking of, Bean's had a bit of a poor sector there. He's dropped 2 seconds, and Alp's right in his tail. We might jump on board here. Down the inside, easy as you like, just about. Yeah.
I was on board with Bean. I'm not sure what happened there. I think he just messed up the first corner of that complex, and he was kind of chasing himself around the rest of it. He had almost gotten that up to second on Alp right beforehand, and Nicholas, the big winner in that equation. 3 seconds now as Perry is right on the tail of Bean for P3, as Bersey picks up 3 seconds as well.
Yeah, so Perry may look around the outside here. He's going to throw the nose in. Can he get it broken in time? Not quite. Being good on the brakes there. Hangs on for now. Perry might try and open up the corner here and get a run. As you've got the Alfa Romeo just getting out of the way in front as well. Oh, I think he's getting out of the way. Yeah, just on the inside there. But yeah, Perry not quite been able to get the run this time. But he's still in this fight, so that's really costly for Bean, because 3 seconds with such similar pace between him and Nick, and now with Alp in between them, that's going to be difficult to make up without mistake or penalties to play a part. As Anthony's retired, has he put it in the wall just behind? Or is he retired on track? No, I think that's on track. That's a bit of a no-no. For anyone else listening in, make sure you don't do that.
I think he may have just got frustrated seeing the groups come up on him. Alp is now going to be chasing down Nicholas. That's his Alp runs wide. I'm not sure how strict these penalties are going to be with the rain. I think we get a little bit of leeway there at least. Running wide and whatnot. His speed's to 2 seconds.
Yeah, I guess it's based on kind of your speed as you go wide. So if you're kind of trying to save a bit of a slide, and then you're going to drop a bit of speed, and you might be able to get away with a couple, but you'd probably rather not risk it if you don't have to. Still, it's like Juventus and DK at the back, they've just swapped positions as well. So Juventus had a good run through that corner. He's managed to get through as well on DK, who is currently P16 in the Renault. Sole representation for doing it tonight. So hopefully he can get himself back towards a couple of points, as Perry picks up 3 seconds as well. So plenty of guys all over the field getting those time penalties. It's going to play a big role towards the end. It will definitely be worth checking at intervals during the race what the status is like. Speaking of the race, we've only just crossed the 1/3 point, so lots and lots of racing to go.
Yeah, I feel like the conditions have stabilized here for inners. I don't think there's been really an increase or decrease in the rain, and I think it should go back to level eventually. Didn't get the full weather report, it might not. But this is, we're seeing the penalties coming hot and heavy now as the field starts to string out once again. Fenrique has gained in P5. He can now see the back Perry. He probably knows that that's a 3-second time penalty for him. Fenrique's been clean so far, and I believe he's going to be in full attack mode. He's a frog. He's a frog. He's good at it.
Yep, good in both dry and wet conditions. Yeah, you can just see him in the distance there. So Fenrique will be hoping to start to close in there. I was just riding on board a little bit with Lopez and KD as well. They're hunting down Matty Robbo. KD was almost looking like making a move, but he's made a little bit of a mistake in the 3rd sector, and he's now going to come under pressure from Lopez. As for Enrique, picked up 3 seconds at the first couple of corners.
Curse the commentator. It works every time. You mean I'm not controlling cameras.
Who do you want to ping next? As Lopez will get the move done down the inside of the straight.
Hopefully this is clean.
Matty Robbo's still in front there. Lopez will pick up 3 seconds. He's just jumped on board. Oh, this is hilarious. Who's next? Katie's not close enough to make a counter attack there, so Lopez will hang on the P11. We didn't flick to Juventus, so that's not our fault, that one. You can't blame us for that, but I think some of the others can. But Lopez now through. Those two have been swapping over an awful lot this race. Matty Robbo kind of just staying firm in P10, not quite coming under direct threat yet. The two guys behind are kind of too busy scuffling with themselves to really challenge Matty Robbo. But he's got a pretty big gap in front of Ricky, so they need something to happen to kind of catch up to more points. But as KD picks up 3 seconds as we are riding on board with him, so there you go.
And in the sister racing point, Bean has closed about 4/10 to that 2nd and 3rd sector on Alp. The inverse of what happened about 5 laps ago. So we'll have to see. Alp is definitely running less downforce, so it's a much better top speed than Bean can. And as Bean kind of cuts the first part of that chicane, sorry, Bean.
that will probably be a warning. Might quickly just pull them up as a quick reference, see if anyone's really got many. Yeah, Alp has 3 seconds, as does Perry. Fenrique's got 6, and most other people have either 3 or 6. With the standout, the outlier performer of KD, take a ping at what he's got already. He's got 15 seconds, so he's in disqualification territory at this rate, not even at halfway point yet. So KD's going to have to be on his best behaviour here, as it looks like he's next to Lopez here, just about down around, trying to go around the outside of turn 4, which will turn to the inside. So yeah, it's difficult to hold it around the outside, but if you can, you've got the inside for the next corner, and you can kind of squeeze the guy off, as KD sort of did to Lopez there. but he gets through on there very nicely. So up to P11, but I mean those 15 seconds are going to cost him at the end. So Katie's going to have to be on his best behaviour now.
Yeah, there's still half the race left. I think Bursey did a practice race with some fellow drivers on Monday night, and I think he said he got disqualified after 40 seconds of films, which in these conditions is probably a lot easier to pick up. So hopefully these guys can keep it on track here. As I think that's Beanies. Once again, he's run a lot more downforce and out because he's really gaining through the more technical sections. Fenrique with another 3 second.
Oh, that's his third penalty. So he's picked up a lot of warnings in not much time because he got his second penalty only I think 2 laps ago. So Fenrique's pushing. You can see that gap closing, but I mean, if it's going to cost him that many penalties, there's almost no point because that's 6 seconds setback now, just from the last kind of few laps. So Fenrique's got to find that balance as well, as DK's going to pit. Speaking of, these guys will have to pit for more inters, and with such a kind of traction brake turning sort of racetrack like this is, where the tyres do come under strain, I wonder if anyone's going to need to pit twice if the weather stays like this.
I would say that's probably gonna happen. I think some guys might be able to take it distance if they're really careful, but for the most part, this is gonna be a long way to go on inters.
Yeah, looking at this telemetry here, most guys inters are mid-high 40s. The highest I can see with my quick glance here is actually, I'm just looking at the rears. Usually I look at the fronts as the gauge, but the rears are a lot more worn. Some of these guys' rears are just about touching 60, so people are going to have to pit soon. Most of the front tops 5 are around about the 45-50% range, but you've got Speedster and P6, he's burning through those rears. They're in the 60s, so people are going to have to pit soon. If the tyres are only going to do 10-11 laps, at maximum you may have to pit the second time, so I mean that's 2 chances at an undercut. So we'll see who's brave or who's even braver and tries to stick it out. But I mean that's gonna play a role. Usually when you think of wet weather, you don't really think of tyre and pit stop strategy, but it could be important here.
Yeah, I think especially for Speedster with the undercut. 9 laps in, I mean, at this trajectory, I would have to actually have to make another stop on top of that,
Speaking of,
with or without it, into the rain, and to get maybe 3 seconds on penalty. Man,
mate, we're on fire today.
Yes.
Oh, this is great. Just having far too much fun with this. Speedster's actually sticking with Fenrique as well, so both of them are closing the top 4. But again, similar to Fenrique, if it's going to cost you penalties, probably need to back off slightly. But Speedster's showing good pace. Arbar's 6.5 seconds or so behind, so he's not quite in the fight yet. He's got Swarner, and fairly the gap's kind of around about there. You've got Katie and Lopez down in P11 and 12, still kind of within the Matty Robbo range, but Matty Robbo not really coming under pressure yet, so hang on to that P10, as I'm sure he'll try to for as long as possible. We've got Bursey down in P13 as well, kind of a bit far back. He's lost out in the pit stops as well. He was in the top 10 before.
Yeah, I think Bursey really lost out early on the start. He really lost a lot of spots, despite some promising pace in qualifying. Eventually had to give way to Swarner there in P8. His teammate, who is more involved in the points race. I think Swarner is P5, finished 3rd place last week. Back up. Speedster is still gaining on Fenrique, actually, I think. About half a lap a second. Clay Funk picks up 3 seconds. Bean still within. He can almost touch Alp. But Alp seems to break away on this extremely long front straight.
Yeah, it's quite interesting watching some of these gaps. With Fenrique and Speedster, they've got really different strong points in the lap. Like, Fenrique seems to put together a really good first sector, whereas Speedster seems to be good in the second and third sectors. Speaking of, Speedster's coming to the pit. he's the first one to jump. He's going to put it on fresh inters, and I mean, he could get a major undercut here if everyone is going to pit the same number of times as him. Because I don't think those are going to go 17 laps to the end, as I think that is J-Sack pitting as well. So, as is KD, so 3 guys decide to jump in the pits, so they're going to have to stop another time additionally. I wonder how many of the other guys are going to pit twice, or whether they're going to try and stretch it for one more stop, because the difference between fresh inters and old inters is astronomical, but it's just a matter of whether you can make up that pit stop time.
Yeah, typically when you're going around here in the dry, it's mainly just the left sides that's take a pounding, left front in particular. Having both rears, I think that just means these guys are really straining to get the power down in tricky conditions. That said, I think that the rain has pretty much stayed the same here for the past 10 laps. Not sure if it's going to go away or not. I would honestly probably reckon that it's not going to go away at this point, because it's still extremely overcast.
It looks pretty set, doesn't it? Like, there's no real worsening or bettering of the weather. Like, it's just kind of stayed the same for a very long time. Speaking of staying the same, J-Sack has not followed the trend of everyone else. He's gone on to wets. So that might be a gap worth keeping an eye on to KD in front. Because if he thinks it's wet enough, that will be... I mean, he could be in for a bit of a lot of an undercut, really. Although, if it's... Matty Roberts in as well, so... interesting to see whether he goes wets or inters. The J-Sack doing something different. I mean, as a reserve, why not? He may as well try something anyway. Matty Roberts put on wets as well. So I wonder if it is getting wetter. Birdsy's in as well. What's he going on to? Birdsy's gone on to inters. So we've got a direct contrast strategy here, down here, and this could play, it's play a bit of a role in the final result, depending on what tyres will work.
Yeah, I just did that entire lap on board J-Sack. I'm not sure if... don't think it was really lost time. It looked pretty stable, to be honest. He might actually be better off if he looks for the wet spots on the straightaways. But you do see the line forming where it's really puddled there on the inside of what should be the racing line on the streets. Just keep those wets cool.
Or was Elk picked from the front? He's the first front runners to pit. I was about to flick to the front. Perry's lost a fair bit of time. Fenrico is under a second, and they're all going to come in now. Elk has gone for the wets, as has Fenrique. And what about Perry? Perry's gone wets as well, so I haven't noticed the rain getting incredibly heavier. Like, I'm kind of seeing now that it's heavy rain, but I didn't quite spot that switchover point. This must have been a pretty gradual crossover, but I mean, they're all going to wet, so that tells me the rain's here to stay for a long time.
Swarner and
wow.
Wets as is Ricky.
Yeah, so Speedster has undercut Fenrique, but he's on inters, remember now, so he may be a fair bit slower, because I know the inters are fantastic in most rain conditions, but when it flicks over to heavy wet conditions, they just aquaplane like an absolute boat on an ice skating rink. So he might struggle if it is at that wet point. Fenrique is going to be right in his tail now. We'll have to see what Speedster can do on those inters. He's now stuck with them.
Yeah, Speedster's really struggling on these inters. I think it has picked up here in the past 2 or so minutes. It is really, it looked the same for about 10 laps, but here in just the past lap and a half. And I think this is full wet conditions. This is torrential.
Yep. Top 2 are in now as well. Yep. So we were mentioning about, I was mentioning about tyre stops earlier, whether you might fit twice. The wets, on the other hand, they are incredibly durable, so they should be able to go to the end. But yeah, so Nicholas has gone wet as well, as has been, so it is at that point. So Speedster and KD, Bursey and Clay Funk, who've recently pit onto inters, they might be kicking themselves a bit.
And Speedster's still staying out. Yeah, Speedster's still staying out, and he's really struggling through that final corner with the camera involved. He was just chasing it.
Yeah, he doesn't have much choice, does he, now? He kind of has to stay out, otherwise he's going to lose a lot of track position. As Fenrique, they're both weaving everywhere. On board with Fenrique here. Fenrique went inside then outside, and then Speedster went outside, then Speedster went inside and Fenrico went inside, and they couldn't decide whether it was wet enough to stay outside or get an umbrella, and now they hooked on each other. Actually, that might be a bit of a statement, a bit of a frustration call from Fenrico there. I think Speedster did move a bit under brakes, so that could be a little bit naughty from the pair of them. They might both be in a bit of trouble at the end of the race, because I don't think Fenrico needed to run out that wide, but he was probably understandably frustrated about Speedster in the braking zone. Although it was Fenrico doing most of the leading, wasn't it? So
yeah, and I think and I think Speedster at the same time he had to brake early because of the tire choice.
Yeah.
And Fenrico maybe just didn't calculate that. I think I would probably be frustrated if I were Fenrico as well. Maybe Speedster cannot really make it through this S section right now. He is just struggling.
1.7 seconds. Yeah. So we might call that an eye for an eye with those two there. But we'll see what happens. That's not the kind of racing we want to see. Bit of argy-bargy there, but I mean it makes things spicy, doesn't it? Some people like that. But yeah, Speedster's now 2.5 seconds back in about a sector, or 2 sectors. So those inters are gone. He's actually going to come in the pits now for the wets. You can see there's no dry line anymore, really, in that pit lane. And on the track, it's starting to really fade as well. So yeah, Speedster. Unfortunately, the strategy is not working for him, and it's going to really hurt him. As Arbar and Swarner will now get through, as will probably a couple of other guys. He may fall behind Ricky and Matty. Actually, he might just get ahead of. Let's try English this time. He may just get out ahead of Matty Rubbo. It's going to be close, actually. He should be able to hang on there. So Speedster down to P9, so he's lost 3 positions out of that. But now he is on the right tyre, so I guess ultimately it will be better off. And I think everyone else has put on wets now, those guys who did pit for inters. With the exception of DK, who's still out on the inters.
Yeah. I think DK was trying to wait it out, but...
Oh, he's straight on. He's got nothing, yeah.
He was straight on at the start of the
Oh, he's been disqualified. Oh.
Yeah, just going backwards.
Oh,
that's tough for DK.
That's a tough break. Tough. Yeah.
I can tell you exactly what happened there.
Alright, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, he completely locked up aquaplane straight on at the start of that. What is a pretty quick, third or fourth gear corner usually, but with the inners and in these conditions, he could not turn the car. He went straight on. Tried to reverse out of it, but if you reverse anywhere near the track, this game will disqualify you. So that is unfortunate for DK, but
yeah,
don't think he was really going to be scoring any points today anyways. So I mean, tough coming off his first points finish of the year, but
yeah. I mean, he would have been hoping for some kind of result, but I mean, yeah, if that disqualification, the game is incredibly quick to disqualify you when you're parked somewhere questionable. And I mean, in these conditions on inters on this kind of wet weather, I mean, it's going to be incredibly hard to flick spin it anyway, so maybe as soon as he went straight on, he was doomed anyway. But that's so disappointing there. So no Renault will finish the race, as Lopez will go around the outside of Matty Robbo. It is the only real battle on track, other than Swarner and Arbar, so we'll have to stick between them. As we've jumped on board, he picks up 3 seconds again. So
ooh, yeah, this is Robbo.
Ooh, yeah.
Trying to get the undercut, but there's just nowhere to get the power down to do an undercut in these conditions at the moment. This is the hardest it's rained, I think, this season that we've seen. We've seen, I think, 5 races at the start of the season in succession where we had rain, and this has gone from a little sprinkle to a full-on downpour in the past 10 laps, 8 laps or so. So obviously with this S section, with these guys who probably had hybrid setups ready, this is going to be so difficult to tiptoe.
Yeah,
I mean, to the technical parts of the circuit.
Were you just on board with Lopez there?
I was on board with Maddie watching both of them.
Yeah. Oh, Maddie, yeah, that's what I meant, yeah. Just absolutely sliding. I'm not sure if there's any point having a steering wheel at this point. It's that bad.
And well done to JSAC. He's climbed his way back into the points conversation in P12 with these two struggling on the wets in these conditions. Obviously, JSAC used to Mediterranean storm fronts coming up into Greece. Probably drives in the wet all the time. Although it probably rains a lot more in England.
So you reckon it's the Brazilians and the Greeks then?
Yeah, Brazilians and the Greeks, of course. Miss Katie has retired. I think that's coming
In the
out of
pit lane.
corner.
He's in the pit lane, yeah. So he's done for the day. He had a lot of penalties, so he probably wouldn't have really been able to scrabble a result together. Speaking of a lot of penalties, there are a couple of guys with a lot. Fenrique's got 12 seconds, which is pretty notable considering that's up for a top 5. So that's going to hurt him a tiny bit. Nicholas is still clean, he's got the 2 warnings only. So Nicholas doing all that he needs to do. Alp does have a couple of penalties as well, but Bean is clean. So that actually might be something to watch towards the end of the race. If Bean can stay within 6 seconds of Alp, then he will jump him. That gap's currently at 4.5. And it is growing a bit, so Bean needs to find a bit of pace here if he wants a chance at P2. But I think Nicholas is a bit too far ahead, and the fact that he's that clean means I think it's really his race to lose now at this point with 10 laps to go. So
yeah, it's pretty similar to last week. Nicholas has done everything he's had to do this season so far, even missed a round. But he has just been consistent each and every race, which I think he was kind of missing last season. To be fair, as we're migrating hosts, I think DK has left the session.
Yes, hopefully that gets handed over to a strong host. We know that the lobby is very unstable at this point in time, so let's hope that this doesn't cause any weirdness. But we'll have to
we are
assume it
past the
doesn't.
halfway point, so I think it's a little bit different than Vietnam. When we had that, it was the same issue, but it was a lobby issue. Arbar is kind of starting to stretch his legs a little bit on Swarner. I feel like Swarner had a good chance there, but starting to fall back as Speeds is trying to make his way back to the field, challenging the Welshman here for P8.
Yeah, Speeds will be on a charge. He'll be driving with frustration, I think, after that botched strategy. But he's got a lot of pace. He's closed a lot of time this lap. And Ricky, he's currently sitting P8, which is a good result, considering the pace of this tier. But he might drop to P9 here, depending on what Speedster can do. But it looks like Speedster does have the pace at this stage of the race. It is the closest battle on track. We'll have to keep an eye on Maddie, Robbo and J-Sack just behind as well. We haven't given the front guys too much attention because they are that spread out. But yeah, Speedster down the inside of Ricky down the main straight. That move will be done well before the braking zone there. So good move there. Can he get it stopped though? He's a tiny bit deep, so Ricky might try and get a bit of a switch back. You see Speedster's rear end sliding all over the place, but that move should be done now. Yep. So well done there, Speedster getting up there.
Yeah, that's well helpful from Speedster. That tail end was all over the place coming out of turn 3. He really did a good job of just snapping that back in and trusting the traction he had with the rear tires. Not sure if Ricky's going to be able to fight back from that. I think Speeds is definitely on a charge at the moment. Yes, Warner picks up a 3-second time penalty. Back within a second of our bar for P6 though.
Yeah, maybe that's a setup thing then, unless it's just inconsistency in the lap. Quick at different points. That gap was kind of 0.6, 2 laps ago, then almost a second and a half last lap, and now it's back to 0.8. So trying to find a bit of rhythm still in these wet conditions. But Swanner is on the back, but probably not quite close enough to really threaten Arbar yet, especially without the DRS.
Could be inconsistency in the lap, or it could be inconsistency in the track. We've just seen this. This thing is absolutely. It looks like a skating rink now.
Yep.
It just keeps raining harder and harder here at altitude.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really look like letting off. Like maybe the rain has stopped slightly, but I mean it's not particularly noticeable looking at the track conditions, and it's still incredibly hazy. So I mean, it looks like we're set for the rest of the race with these kind of conditions. We've got some yellows. That is a Mercedes. It's Juventus. He's lost his whole front wing just past the pit entry, so he's going to have to do a whole lap without a wing, which is really disappointing for Juventus. Had such an up and down season, hasn't he?
Really has. Yeah, he even had a pretty good race going. I think the points were certainly on the offer up until that first pit stop where he kind of lost it with the medium tires.
We've got a VSC
pit box.
Knows. So
To be completely honest, I'm kind of surprised that the first one is under this VSC. This might be a really prime opportunity for Alp to maybe make some ground up on Nicholas.
Yeah, if you can push the Delta.
Yeah. Where on track that ends and where he can start attacking once again.
It's good to go. Yep. So he's peeled it right in the traction zone of turn 3, which probably isn't the best place to have the Delta go away, but the gap's a second and a half, so they have closed a bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah, and some of it might be Nicholas taking his foot off the gas, no pun intended.
Yeah.
A little bit. Maybe welcoming that challenge from Alp, hoping that Alp overdrives a bit, knowing that Alp already has a penalty.
Yeah. Well, there's no need to do anything silly. If you've got 6 seconds in hand over him on penalties, there's no point. We've seen in many a race before. The one I can think of is Segrist in France in AM2. He got a drive-through out of P1 for speeding under a VSC, and that cost him a win. So it's probably the last thing Nick would want to do, so maybe just playing it safe on that front as well. But yeah, Alp did close the gap, but he's going to need a gap in by 6.
If Alp can get close, I think that Nicholas would probably let him by. Even though, pride would tell you otherwise, obviously when he went on track, but it's really not worth the battle, not worth the drama. If you're Nick right now, leading the championship by a good chunk of points. I think it's 40 this week. But
Nick's got a bit more to worry about with Bean, I think. So Bean's caught Alp a little bit as well. That gap's now for around 3 seconds. So Bean's now 4.5 behind Nicholas, and he's still clean on penalties as well. So I think Nick's only challenge would come from Bean, but that gap still needs to be closed, and it's not really. So I think Nicholas does have this one covered, and I mean, yeah, you may as well not really take risks you don't need to. So it's just going to be about keeping it between the white lines. You did say, as much as he probably won't admit it, he doesn't really need to worry about Alp getting past him, even though I'm sure he'd love to win on track anyway. So I think at this point it's about being smart. Always Alp gets a bit slidey through there, just on the offboard. So Alp is pushing, but he's lost ground. So Nicholas is doing everything right, everything he needs to at the moment. It's a champion's drive, kind of, isn't it? If he's a real contender, this is the kind of race you need to win, holding it under pressure.
Yeah, and he hasn't really buckled an inch so far. He's really controlled this race, start to finish. JSAC and Maddie go for P11. A ways away from Lopez for that final points-paying position. But some good racing here between two EU guys, as we do have another yellow. I think that was that Juventus again?
No, I think it was Bursey. I think it might have been a Haas, but was Juventus
I just saw a few shades of blue in that yellow zone. Not sure who it was.
They were close together on track. I think it might have been Bursey just getting a bit loose. I don't think he's picked up damage, though. No, Juventus doesn't have damage either, so just a little bit of a spin for either one of them. Probably can't quite confirm who, which is a bit annoying, but oh well.
Yeah, interesting dynamics here between Ricky and Lopez. Faded, who's raced every race so far this season for Ferrari, is Lopez's teammate. Couldn't make tonight, which is why Ricky's in here. I wonder if Ricky might let Lopez by here pretty soon, just for that extra point. Lopez is still with an outside shot, I think, of a top 5 in the points come end of the season. And it's getting dangerously close. Hopefully cooler heads prevail there, but it's about 2 o'clock in the morning in Wales. Who knows what's going on at Ricky's house right now?
Yeah, I believe he's switching on the cause. What's the cause switch? It's linked in there. So if anyone does want to check out Ricky's stream, go do that. But yeah, it will be a late night for him. Probably got a couple of drinks out to keep him awake. But yeah, we might see. I mean, we know that Ferrari aren't any good with inter-team strategy. Bursey's retired in the pit lane. I think that's okay.
He took that 5-second penalty and he decided.
I should say Ferrari are traditionally not very good at inter-team strategy. But, I mean, these guys are probably better on the pit wall than most of those blokes may be.
I think Swarner's gonna run here, I think.
Oh, will he ascend it?
Oh,
big on the brakes.
Yeah, he's hitting it.
Oh, Speedster's retired as well.
Oh, Lord. Where did he retire at?
That's in the middle of the straight. He's retired on track. Why has he done that? That's very puzzling there. I wonder if his net was about to drop or something and he's decided to call it.
Yeah, he might have started just lagging. He might have dropped out, actually, because
usually it just says he's left rather than he's retired. So I reckon he's actually hit the retire button there. I'm not sure if that's a mistake or not, but that is interesting because that's going to promote Matty Robbo back into points with JSAC
behind. Which makes this battle between he and JSAC even more interesting than already was. Yeah. Expect the unexpected. For 3.5 laps remaining here. So love when it rains. You can see the brake ducts heating up, glowing red.
Yeah. No, just a good picture, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think Ricky is kind of starting to hold Lopez up. I think Lopez might actually be kind of like, hey man, come on.
Yeah. I mean, the gap in front is 15 seconds, but I mean, you'd rather not be behind a slower teammate at this phase of the race. Ricky might just let him go. Yeah, Ricky's going to pit.
Ricky's going to pits here.
Yeah, I think the rain's gone a bit, so it's probably just for Inter's conditions now. But Ricky's going to lose. Yeah, he's putting on Inter's. He's going to lose out to Matty Robbo and JSAC, who are going side by side again. Matty Robbo getting a poor exit out of turn, or the last turn there. JSAC's going to get him back, but Matty's going to fight him again. Ricky will come out behind both of them. So Ricky's lost himself a couple of points there, potentially, but Matty Robbo down the inside. Looks like JSAC's going to try and hold it, and he has. He'll take a warning for that, but strong there around the outside. That's a big move.
Yeah, really impressive stuff from JSAC up in the points. I feel like the harbingers of action are usually the guys from the EU tiers. They always come out here with some different strategies, always mix it up, and I think that was probably the smart move from Ricky, not to take that extra point away from Lopez or any more time.
Yeah,
for that matter.
I mean, he still might catch these guys with points. He's already closed 6/10, and we know, watching previous races, I think of primarily, I think it was the second or third last race last season in Hungary, where a couple of guys put on wets with like 2 laps to go, like 3 laps to go, and they made up that time. So Ricky's already gained second in about a sector and a half. Yeah,
this dry line that we saw in the first probably 10 laps of the rain, that has reformed here in the past lap and a half, 2 laps, where I think these are inner conditions, and he might just be able to lash back on his points.
I was just checking the planetary to check the tyre wear, because Matty Robbo was really struggling. His rears are in the 70s, so they're in puncture territory. So he might have had to pit. He's only going to lose out to Ricky, which he probably would have anyway. So he's not actually going to really lose anything in terms of net positions, I don't think. He might go a lap down.
Ricky's catching JSAC in a hellacious straight now.
But yeah, 4 seconds under now. Definitely.
Multiple seconds a sector. I think he came out about 11 seconds behind, and now he's already down to 3.5. So I see this at the inner races, especially for lower points paying positions. I think Ricky probably wasn't feeling those wets anymore. Decided it was probably a better idea just to get out of Lopez's way and throw those inners on. Go for a nice little challenge. As Alp at the front is down to 1 second for the first time in I don't know how long. It's been quite a while since we've seen Nittens under siege. Pretty sterling race for him so far as Alp is definitely pushed. Yeah.
Just catching on that inside curve there. That really can throw the car a fair bit. It looks like he's lagging a bit as well, so let's hope that doesn't play a problem for him. But he's now lost that time he's closed. It's back up to 1.3. So Nicholas not quite getting enough under pressure to really have to defend. There's Alps. He's drifting through the stadium section there. Tail end very, very happy. His rears are in the 70s as well, as are Enrique's. So they've been pushing like crazy. Actually, as are J-Sax, but J-Sax still looks like he's got a bit of pace. Although in saying that, look at Ricky now. He's already passed him.
Yeah. So, J-Sax just let him by. I think he knows that it's probably better for both of them just to let that happen, because J-Sax really struggling on these tires.
I mean, when you lose 6 seconds in 2 laps, you know it's probably not quite worth fighting.
Yeah, these inners are definitely the tire to go with now. But if this would have happened about 6 or 7 laps ago, I think we could have seen a completely different race.
Yeah, 100%.
But that actually was a smart move for Ricky to get on Lopez's way, and I think he was pretty confident with that tire choice. He's back up into P9, so they basically just swapped positions.
Yeah, I mean 5 laps ago, that would have made things interesting, because guys, I know a lot of people are reluctant to pit from inters to wets and wets to inters, because it's so unknown as to when the weather changes. But I mean 5 laps ago would have made things spicy. It looks like the rain's almost gone now, but we're right on board with Nicholas for the final sector, because he's led it pretty much from start to finish. The confetti goes off, still maintaining its general shape actually in the wet weather, which is interesting. It's not just a soggy clump.
Oh, and Al with a big mistake.
Made a mistake. That's going to let Bean through.
Al was really struggling there.
Yeah, but Nicholas will win the race. Around the final corner, he's going to take a commanding victory to help his championship charge. Bean would have gotten Alp on penalties anyway, but now can claim P2 anyway. And they've both lost it. Oh, and Bean's nearly gone flying. And Perry will take a podium off Alp as well. So Perry in a P3. But they've both gone absolutely yeet off the final corner. Yeah, that was.
I'm not sure if that was actually.
And Fenrique's out of fuel, I think, as well. Unless he's just Fenrique's got a puncture. That's what's wrong. Fenrique's got a left rear puncture, and he's spun it as well. Oh, this is a picture, isn't it? Let's make this the. This is crazy. And Arbar jumps Fenrique. Oh, he's T-boned him. This is just as entertaining as the race. This is crazy.
I don't think this is a demolition derby.
Oh, where's Lopez at? He may as well right on board. He's going to lose it as well. And he's going to collect all of them.
There's absolutely nowhere to go. Ricky should be able to make it.
What's Ricky going to do?
He's just going to...
Oh, of course he's hit. Of course he's hit the Mercedes. Of course he has. And J-Sack will come around for the final point. Please don't smash anyone. Oh, that is a picture and a half. It looks like they've kind of sorted themselves out, but
the outside of that final corner must have gotten just too dry from these wets. They're so worn. Everybody was losing at the exact same place at the exact same time.
I'll make sure to make that image the thumbnail for this YouTube video before it gets changed to the official one. But I mean, that's one way to end a race, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Anyway. It is Nicholas. It is Nicholas who takes the win. Demanding race, lots of focus, needing to be put into it to keep it clean with the track limits, as well as clean in terms of making mistakes and tidy in the wet conditions. So Nick has done everything he needs to do, ticked all the boxes, and has come home with a win. Bean will take P2, Mr. Consistent as always, and then Alp will take a podium. Actually, Nick picked up 3 seconds somewhere in the last sector on the last lap, so he's only second and a half ahead of Bean. Also worth noting, Bean will take the quickest lap. And then, Perry did jump Alp as well. That's my mistake. Apologies about that. So Nicholas, Bean and Perry are the podium getters. Alp and Arbar will take P4 and 5. Enrique, with lots and lots of penalties, will take P6. He got jumped by Arbar at the end. Sworn with points, as are the 2 Ferraris, and J-Sack will take the final point as well. Matty Robo just misses out after being in that 10th spot for so long. Juventus with a couple of mistakes. Clay Funk with 21 seconds of penalties. We've got Speedster, Bersy, KD, DK and Ant, who all retired. yes, everyone getting penalties except for Bean. That's how difficult it is around here. But they've done well. They put on a decent race there. So I was pretty happy doing that race. That was really entertaining to watch, actually, pretty much from start to finish, in my opinion.
Yeah, some strange conditions leading up to it, but yeah, fun nonetheless. You never leave these races disappointed. There's always something going on in this tier that it's really fun. Let's see if Perry's in.
Yeah, Alp won't make it. So it may just be Perry, and I'm not sure about Nick. He's been missing a couple of interviews recently. I might just send him a quick message as well. But we'll keep it nice and short, I think. I'll just shoot Nick a quick message.
Thanks for Bot Hut.
Hello there.
Oh.
How are you?
Oh, I got it. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, sorry, just give me 2 secs. We'll pull up the winner's card while we wait for a response, actually. But yeah, that was something, wasn't it, Perry?
Oh yeah, that was intense. A lot of focus.
Yeah. Changeable conditions. Dry to inters to wets to pretty much inters at the end as well. Plenty to think about, plus the challenges of Mexico anyway with the corner cutting as easy as it is to pick up. It looks like Nicholas will join us for a minute, so we'll probably just do our normal Discord yelling at each other through the mic. But we may as well start now with Perry. P3 jumping up on penalties. You were always kind of there or thereabouts. Probably not quite having the pace to challenge on track with the top guys, but keeping it clean did pay dividends in the end with the podium. And considering how challenging that race was with the weather and the track limits, you must be pretty happy with that.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty thrilled. I thought, I just kind of took a time trial a wet setup. Didn't really know what it would do in the race. It was, it was good on fresh tires, obviously, but yeah, I started at P4. I got a pretty good start, and then, from there, it was just damage limitation. I'm not usually up that high in the field. Usually Fenrique or somebody's got a pretty good jump, so I think because of the rain and the setup, I kind of went with an aggressive wet setup, and that put me sort of towards the front after qualifying. And then, just the race was just trying to keep it on the track. Got my penalty about 9 or 10 laps in, so after that it was just making sure not to get another 3 seconds. And yeah, it was a pretty boring race. I really wasn't racing the top three across the line. I think at time, maybe early on, I might have had out, but wasn't really going to battle him or Bean Sandwich. So those guys, they had definitely more pace in the dry and wet. So my whole strategy was not to make penalties and to not lose it anywhere. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with P3.
Well, yeah, I think you can call that a success then. We did see you on the back of Alp a couple of times, so that was good to see some pace there. But yeah, the clean bit, keeping that clean is what gave you the podium in the end. So that's a testament to your driving and focus there in that race. So well done to you. And on to next week, which is Canada, the third heavy corner cutting track in a row. What are your thoughts on that?
Canada's pretty difficult, especially for me. I've not had a lot of luck there in the past, so I think that'll just be another one of those tracks where if I'm lucky we get some rain and maybe I can bag a few places, but if not, I think right now with the way the championship's shaping up, I'm trying to just keep battling Lopez at the points, so I feel like we haven't had a lot of battles on track. It's mostly, he'll have one really good race, and then I'll have a really good race. So it's kind of one of those points battles.
Yeah. There are plenty of fights up and down the field in the championship as well on track. So it's good to get a result. And we were talking in the stream a little bit as well about your pretty consistent form at the moment. You haven't necessarily had the cleanest races from start to finish in terms of keeping out of trouble and whatever. Getting caught up in a couple of things, but you've always kind of been in that top 5 in recent weeks. You must be pretty happy about that, considering that fight in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've put in more effort. I think I got into a rut there early on where I was kind of back to just, not practicing kind of where I'd pan out. And I think especially Lopez, in a way, it has motivated me to just kind of battle him for the championship. There's a pretty big gap, so I kind of want to stay in that sort of area in the fight where probably not good enough to fight Nicholas and being sandwiching out, but just try to stay close as we can to them and then battle Lopez. I know last year I was all over the place and didn't practice at all, and so I know this season is definitely a change.
Yeah, good to hear. Anyway, congratulations on your P3. Superb drive in challenging conditions. So yeah, you should be pretty happy about that one. And we'll catch you next week for the Canadian Grand Prix. So yeah, we'll see you then, and hopefully, possibly be chatting to you again. I'll have to see how things pan out.
All right, yeah, hopefully call another Bodhad win, Kitten Petter P2 in the AM2 race as well.
Oh, he's been giving me a run for his money, so I wouldn't be so sure on that yet. But yeah, plenty of exciting stuff happening in the American division of Contest of Speed. We'll get Nicholas on the line. It feels a bit like a phone a friend in a millionaire hot seat kind of game, but we'll get that hooked up. There we go, let's try that. Can you hear me, bud? I can't hear you. Why not?
Oh.
Hello there.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you guys hear Nick?
Yeah, I can hear.
Lovely. All right, that will do for now. P1, a couple of pretty frustrating races, I think, for you. Still getting good results, but probably not quite having the cleanest run of things. But it's good to get back on the top step of the podium, get your championship kind of rolling again.
Yeah, it was good. I'm really happy with tonight. It was some really strong competition. Being Alp, Perry, Fenrique, Arba, it's a really good grid when Fenrique ends up 6th. So yeah, I'm just thrilled about how today went, and I don't think it could have gone much better.
Yeah, we saw you under pressure at multiple stages of the race. But I mean, you kept your head down. Me and Kitten were complimenting you for the focus you had in not picking up penalties and putting in consistent lap times, and managing to kind of defend when you needed to, but then putting yourself in a position where you didn't really have to worry too much about behind directly. So a really focused race in really challenging conditions, so you must be pretty happy to have not kind of made mistakes or really put yourself in a position to lose that chance of the win.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I made, early on, by lap 5 I'd gotten 2 warnings, and I think on lap 34 I got a penalty, and I was not impressed with myself for letting that one slip. But yeah, overall I think it went about as well as it could have done, and again, as I said, the competition is amazing, and to be first is just unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. With the quality of field chasing you down, must be really rewarding to get on top. In terms of your race setup, we saw you get pole with a not too shabby time at all. Were you aware that it was going to rain so heavy in the race? And did you kind of focus on that, or did you make a bit of a hybrid, or what was the go with the setup?
It was a completely wet one. I'm not good enough with setups to do in between, but I'm amazed that I went that quickly, because that's quicker than my time trial time. So I was really happy with that, and then I thought I had a good shot because I was using a wet setup. I thought it was going to be a good race. Yeah,
I mean, if you can get it on pole with a setup like that, then you're probably going to give yourself a whole lot of confidence for the race. So yeah, we saw that gap really, really small for the front row, but then you just managed to keep it nice and clean for the race and really put in the times and the focus to get that result. So well done there. Thoughts on Canada next week? Another corner cutting heaven, 3 in a row then it will be. You pretty confident for that one?
Yeah, it's my home track. I love the circuit, and it's always really nice to drive there. It's probably not one of my best circuits. I'd have said Mexico and Hanoi are my best or strongest 2 circuits, but it's one I enjoy, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it should be a good race. We always love watching the AM1 guys run around the track, regardless of where it is. Things happen, and we see quality driving. So, yeah, you were the king of that today. So congratulations from myself and Kitten and plenty of other guys in the chat and in the comments as well. So superb job for getting the win.
Great, thank you.
And we'll catch you next week. We'll see if we're talking to you on the podium again. So
Great, thank you so much.
yeah, well done, buddy. All right, that should wrap us up there. Kitten, would you like to close us off?
I would much prefer for us to get back on Twitch next week, but we've obviously been having some difficulties since the latest PlayStation updates. Looking forward to hopefully getting back to normal. Maybe we can troubleshoot something this weekend to make everything as seamless as possible, especially with the live stream. But yeah, bud, I think we did a good job for Freaky Friday F1 edition, right?
Yeah, I mean, we made do with what we had, and yeah, hopefully we get Twitch back up and running, and we get the big boss on the sticks for the stream. So we'll see how that goes for next week. Worst comes to worst, we might end up here again, but I mean, regardless of where we are, these guys are going to put on a show. Make sure to go check out Contest of Speed on the socials, on YouTube, on Twitch, to check out the current happenings of the league. Plenty of tiers to go see. Got 4 in the Euros, 2 in the AMs, and potentially an Oceanic lining up shortly. So plenty going on. Make sure to check out as much of that as possible. And if you'd like to tune in for Canada next week, make sure to do so. Same time. I believe it's Wednesday night for you lot. Thursday morning for me. So wherever you are in the world, make sure to tune in. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much, and congratulations once again to our podium getters. And let's see what happens in Canada. Will be a home track for many of the blokes in the tier, so it should be a good one. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you later.